Welcome to CFO Squared, hosted by Carl Baker, with Baker's CFO Advisory conversations for business owners focused on growth, structure, cash flow, and building stronger businesses. Today's episode starts now.
As a business owner, you should always be working at your level of incompetency. That's a line I've been using for 30 years in training staff to help them understand how to leverage better, how to train staff below them better, how to help get more work done, and help a staff not be so overloaded. I grew up in a business, the public accounting business, where it's very much a leverage model, where in order for a person to get to the next level, they need to basically replace themselves with future with staff below them, so to speak, in their hierarchy, to learn how to do their job. And it just makes the person more well-rounded. It teaches them how to become a teacher, how to teach people their job, etc. So I've used that line in mentoring staff for 30 years. Always be working at your level of incompetency. That doesn't mean that you're incompetent, but there are things that you have mastered. And once you've mastered a task, give it away and let somebody else do it. And then you will then free your time up to work on things that you have room for growth in, have opportunity for growth in. That's a concept that applies in today's session as we talk about the first three roles every growing small business owner needs to add to their business. At some point, you are doing everything, and that makes a lot of sense. It saves you money. It helps you learn the business. It helps you grow the business. But at some point later down the road, it makes sense to start giving roles away. And so I think of that line, I used that line in mentoring staff, but that really applies as well, just as much to a business owner that is growing their business. Because it also, the deeper a person gets, I know, I've lived it myself, the deeper a person gets, the more difficult it is to start giving tasks away. The notion, if it's going to get done right, I have to do it. That can really sink in. And so the way to get past that sometimes involves intentionally and overtly pushing yourselves to do things you don't want to do. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Hello, my name's Carl Baker. I own and run an accounting firm called Baker CFO Advisory. And we offer traditional services. You can see my contact information here in the slideshow. We offer traditional services, outsourced accounting, bookkeeping, tax preparation, and tax planning. We're really designed, and we're really here to help growing businesses, business owners with their growing businesses, grow their firm and provide the support needed to help them grow the firm. We offer fractional CFO and advisory services along with that. And so you'll see in this session and in the series that we've been having this year and coming up in the future, we're not talking about debits and credits and accounting and taxes. We're really talking about growth of an accounting firm or growth of a business. And I'm taking my experience in working with clients for 33 years. And instead of us talking about accounting, those are things that we do and we do very well, and our clients are happy with us. But I really am wanting to work with business owners that need help in growing their business. And so these are some of the things that we talk with clients about, we help clients with. And so I'm happy you're here. Thank you very much for joining us today. Check out our other presentations or other webinars in the YouTube. Like this, comment on this, subscribe to our channel. If you found us, you may already subscribe, but if you haven't, please subscribe, and it does help us out like it does with all the YouTube videos. So you know the drill there. Let's get started. I say that, I need to move the slide in order to get started. All right, so you're a business owner. You're growing the business. You have designs on growing a business. You have goals. You have thoughts about that. And maybe you've done that before. Maybe you've done that 15 times, sold a business and move on. Maybe this is the first time you've ever grown a business, and you have these aspirational goals of growing a business. That sounds glamorous and sexy. And we'll talk about, understanding your why here in a minute. But what does growth really do to the business besides provide financial rewards to you as a business owner, to your staff, gives people jobs? Those are all things that we think about. But also, it's important to understand that growth really means more complexity. And so, as you think about growth, it's important to have some foundational things in place and have a plan in place to handle the things that come with the sexy thing that we think of as growth. So, what are some of those things? Well, you'll be handling right now let's say it a different way. Right now you're handling everything. You're handling operations, sales, marketing, etc. But as you start to grow, you're not going to be doing everything. You're going to be leveraging some of those things. So other things that happen is you'll start to see whether the protocols and procedures in place that you have put in place, whether they are sufficient or whether there needs to be work there. Do you have all your financing in place? Do you have good systems? Do you have good policies as you bring people in? Do you have a good training and an onboarding system? So those are all things that you have to think about as you're chasing this growth goal. The line on this slide, the third line says, as you grow, as you have this complexity that is entering into your business, things that used to work when you had X number of clients or customers, things that used to work then don't necessarily work if you have grown by a factor of 10x. Things that used to work when you were working on your own, where you had all this stuff in your head, doesn't necessarily work as much as you are thinking about as you are adding people. They don't have all these, your staff don't have all this stuff in your head. In their head, they need to have some guidance. They need to have procedures and protocols in place. So that's why it's important to have a good plan, to have a good setup, and to have procedures and processes. But we're here today to talk about the actual implications of staffing. I hear all the time, when do we add staff? And we're going to talk about that. But as we segue into this next slide talks about you being the bottleneck. And I have clients right now that need to hear this. I've needed to hear this at times. I'm not criticizing people. It is a very natural challenge when you are in some phase of growing your business. You haven't added all the staff yet. You do naturally, as the business owner, where you have historically done everything, you do become a bottleneck. And that's going to be one of the challenges that you'll need to overcome and think about. Every decision runs through you. Progress slows as workload increases. I've seen that in my own life. I've seen that with clients. I've seen administrative tasks slow down, and we'll talk about a few of those. If everything's running through the owner's text box, text messages, running through their email, running through their phone calls, running through their accounts, with nobody having access to those things and able to help, then there becomes a problem. The business will also, in this particular situation, the business depends on your availability. What happens if you go on vacation? What happens if you get sick? What happens if you're unfortunately in the hospital? Does the business just stop? Yes. So how do we fix that? The way we fix that is we start the process of hiring people. And the line in here that says you can't scale a business that relies entirely on you is very much a truth. There's only so much time in the day. There's only so much work that one person can do. There's only so much work that two people can do. So to the extent that you're setting up scalable systems and protocols, the better. So we have to start changing the mindset from operator to owner. And here's where I ask you to think about what your why is. It very well may be that you are okay with being a one-man shop. You have a job, you don't really have a business, and that may be okay. You may be earning 2 times what you could earn as this business owner than what you could if you were an employee somewhere, and that may be fine with you. So it is important to understand, what is it you're really wanting? What is your why? But if your why includes, and I've talked about that before, it's so relevant as we navigate through these issues. As you're growing a business, it's very relevant in all the things. In the past, we've talked about protocols, we've talked about systems. In the future, we're going to talk about culture. And all of these things are important to think about and to understand what it is your why and why you're doing this. So if your why is to grow, give staff, give jobs to people, have a greater impact on the community, more financial rewards, all those things. If that's just what you want to do, then great. This is a good session for you if you haven't gone through that before. So in that case, you'll need to stop doing everything yourself. And that might be easy for you. And you might say, great, I don't want to do this anyway. Well, when it comes to the rubber hitting the road, meeting the road, it might be more difficult than it sounds, but that's why we're here and why we're talking about that today. If you are segueing from doing everything yourself to having a growth mentality and a leverage mentality, then what you think about and the way you spend your time will be different. You will start focusing on growth and strategy rather than the minutia of the business, paying bills, serving clients specifically. Those all might be things you will spend your time on, but you're adding these other layers, and to the extent that you're leveraging via staff, the less you will spend time on those things. And the goal would be, if you choose to go down this path, the goal will be to build a business that runs without you so that you can go away. Heaven forbid you get sick. You aren't able to work for a few days. The goal will be the business continues on without you being so involved. So we start to think about how to do this. When do we hire? Who do we hire? I'm going to suggest an order of people, skill sets. May not be the right order for you, but it's a suggestion. It's loosely the order that I've seen businesses take on, businesses apply. I've loosely applied this as my business has grown and as I have hired people. So what are the thoughts here? Your first hires define your growth. It really helps you set the tone for what it is you're leveraging, what it is you're giving away. So these early hires shape your systems and your workflow. It will help you think about what systems and workflow to put in. And it is a very unfortunate truth that wrong hires will cost you time, money, might set you back. The wrong hires might actually cost you business. So it is, I can't impress upon you enough to understand the importance of hiring. That's what we're here to talk about, but to understand the importance of hiring well. Not being flippant in it, really being disciplined. And I'll tell you, that's very hard, because once you make a decision to start hiring, you want to collect these resumes, collect these applications, and get going. Let's do this. This person looks good. Let's hire them. But it's very important to understand how the people coming in that you're going to give responsibility to, how are they, in terms of alignment with your values, your personal values, your corporate values. Hey, are your corporate values established? Have you articulated those corporate values? Those are, what is the person's work ethic? All these things, it's very important to be disciplined in making sure that there's good alignment and that there will be good fit there. That right hire then will create the leverage you're looking for to be the kickstart for your growth. So hire for impact, not just to reduce workload. So we're going to talk about 3 hires in this order. You may disagree with the order. I may disagree with the order. This is a suggestion. I think it's pretty good. And we're going to jump right in and talk about this. First hire is hire for administrative support. This person that comes in will handle many things, and you may disagree with this list. You may add other things. You may add all of these things, but will handle in some order: email, calendar management, data entry, reporting, customer coordination. Think about it. You know how to handle a calendar. What did I say at the beginning? I said at the beginning, you should always be working at your level of incompetency. Once you've mastered a task, give it away. You know how to set up a calendar appointment. Let somebody else do it. Let somebody help you. You know how to enter invoices into your QuickBooks accounting system. Let somebody else do it. Give them a job. It might be challenging to them because they may be new to those sort of things. It'll be quite interesting to somebody that hasn't done that before. So they're being challenged while you're moving on to other challenging things. Customer coordination. If they are the right hire and they are able to represent your business well, they can very easily help with customer coordination. I know you can have them help with some minor bookkeeping, some bill paying. I know of clients right now that don't have good systems in place. We talked about the bottleneck, that are the bottleneck in their financial matters. A vendor sends invoices to the owner. The owner lets it sit in their inbox. It gets buried. By day 2, that invoice is now 50 emails down the line in the inbox. They don't know. They don't remember that invoice, and they haven't put a system in place to handle that invoice when it comes in. Now that invoice is buried. They could very easily set up a system to put that into a log, have somebody else manage it. You're not losing control over time of payment. And this is just an example of an administrative task, but somebody could be managing the entry into your accounting software, could be setting up a log, and could then come back to you with a presentation of the bills that need to be paid. You can decide not to pay that bill at that point if you don't want to, but you have a system in place so that the bills are being managed. What gets measured gets managed. What gets managed gets handled effectively. So you've taken this process out of your email. Somebody you've leveraged it to somebody, and this process is now managed, and you can decide when to pay the bill in your timing and when the cash is available, etc. But you have put a system in place using staffing and using policies and procedures to effectively manage this little component of your business, which is paying vendors. And all of that applies to the flip side as well, revenue collection. But the point is, administrative tasks will help you leverage your time better. Obviously, the impact we've talked about, freeing up your time, reduces the daily sense of being overwhelmed, getting buried with email, those things. So some of that is perhaps self-evident. Number 2 is A second hire, sales or customer success. And I'll just tell you the third is marketing. And somebody might say, well, we should hire for marketing first and then sales. Just depends on where your life cycle is. Where are you? Is your phone already ringing off the hook? Do you already have a following and you're just needing to manage this process better? Well, then the second hire can be in this sales process. This person could handle lead follow-up, lead management, client communication, closing support, proposal development. You could have templates for those sort of things. The impact of this is hopefully more conversions. Now we have growth that you would not have had if you were managing all of this still and having bottleneck issues. No missed opportunities, more predictable revenue. You'll start to see trends. You can step back and actually look at the trends instead of answering email and answering proposals. Most, as this line says at the bottom, many businesses, especially if they're past the initial startup phase and they've started to build a following, businesses don't necessarily lack lead, they lack follow-up. This isn't a sales training per se, but you know it, I know it. It is hard chasing prospective customers, chasing people. And it does take more follow-up than we really want to admit. And somebody has to do that. But if you're the only one there and you're also entering invoices into your QuickBooks and you're answering the phone and you've got 30 emails staring you in the face, then something's going to have to slip, and it might just be your lead management. So second hire that we've suggested is the sales or customer service, customer support. Third, marketing support. What does this person handle? Social media and content to help with fostering the pipeline for, I use a phrase, setting up that lead generation vacuum cleaner such that your brand is sucking clientele, customers, prospective customers into the front door, metaphorically or in reality. So email marketing, lead generation, obviously all of these things will contribute to that marketing engine, which leads to prospective leads, which leads to price quotes going out, which leads then to yeses happening, which leads to new business, which leads to a need for staffing to complete the customer service. All of these things come from having an effective process here. If you're doing it all, you're going to be limited because we've been talking about these other things that also have to happen. So as you're leveraging, you're building this pyramid that will help you scale your business, and you'll start to spend your time in a different way. I've alluded to it earlier, and I'll mention it now. When should you hire each role? Well, I have two responses to that. Number one is now. When should I hire? Now. If you are a business owner and you have aspirations for growth, I think the sooner you get accustomed to this leveraging, the better it will be for you. So hire somebody now. Find something that you can do, and we're going to talk about that. But find a way to start this process of leveraging. If you need to take baby steps, do it, but do it now. The other answer I would say is when you have that question pop in your mind, when should you hire each role? Well, how much pain are you experiencing in these various areas? Think about as you navigate through all these tasks, put them into buckets. I use the EOS organization chart, the entrepreneurial operating system, to articulate that. You have the visionary, operations below that. You have customer service, finance, sales, marketing, and I think that's it. Finance, HR, hiring. That's the other one. So you've got all these different components to the business, and you might be doing them all right now, but you're wearing different hats. You might be in the finance hat one moment. You might be in the customer service hat one moment. You might be in the sales hat, but you're navigating through these different buckets. So think about the different buckets. Where is your pain, and how much pain can you tolerate? Are you doing work at midnight? Does that bother you? If you leveraged your time, could you stop working earlier? So as we navigate through this, when daily tasks overwhelm you, think about that being a good leading indicator that some administrative things could be leveraged. Are leads not converting? You know the sales are out there, but your conversion to new customers aren't happening fast enough. Maybe that's a leading indicator. When growth depends on visibility and you don't think that following is growing fast enough, that might be a leading indicator. And you're going to have to prioritize these possibly. Maybe you can do all three, but maybe you just need to take some baby steps and prioritize. So think about that. We're going to spend a couple slides talking about hiring mistakes and things along that line. Hiring too late. So I can't impress upon you enough the concept, especially if you're wanting to grow, if you're wanting to handle your work life differently and spend your time differently, doing this sooner rather than later is very important. Avoiding the burnout stage. Burnout is real and it can happen, and it will impact your career potentially. It will impact the way you're earning your living. Hiring without clear roles. So if you just say, come in and start working on this, there are going to be problems. If there are not systems in place, if there are not policies and procedures memorialized, if there are not good job descriptions that are real, that are not just AI generated that you haven't looked at, but are real. Are the job descriptions real? Are the expectations well established, documented, measurable? Are those things replicatable as we add new staff? Do we have a good onboarding process? Those things, and we've talked about systems in place, and here is why. If you're repeating tasks over and over, somebody needs to know how to do that. It may seem natural to you. I've had that temptation. It just seems natural. Of course, if you're doing this, you're going to go from step A to B to C, of course. But a person coming in and learning a new job, they don't know what A, B, C is. They have their own logic, and you have a way that you're needing to establish. So do that by putting systems in place. Good segue to this next slide. Systems before scaling. Understand, and one of my favorite lines is the bottom line: set up systems before chaos ensues. So in early stages, it's important to set up these systems so that when you do have growth, we said growth equals more revenue, but it also equals more complexity. Complexity is a nicer way of saying chaos. So setting up systems before the chaos is very much an important thing. It ensures consistency. It makes onboarding easier. You'll document the repeatable processes. Build for scale, not for survival. So you're not just offloading work, you're really setting up a process, you're setting up a way, you're setting up a structure. And that will be important for the scaling. Here's a little note. It'll also be important for your future if you're wanting to grow and then eventually exit, sell the business. Maybe you want to transition this business to your kids. They need to understand what is involved, what are the processes. So building for scale is important. How do we do that? Well, we start lean. That's why I'm suggesting not hiring everybody you need, but a 1, 2, 3. Start lean, specialized. Start lean and broad with administrative help. Specialize. Hire roles that will save you time and help you generate revenue. Obviously, especially in the early stages, none of this matters if you don't have a following. So you've got to build a following first. If you don't have customers, who cares if you have a great administrative staff? Who cares if you have an accounting software? None of that stuff matters. You need to have a good following first. So everything should be focused on building growth, building revenue, and the following, the customer base then can grow, but you have to have some minimum level of customer base first. And then this will be the kickstart for growth. So what does this look like in practice? And we've been sprinkling in some of these thoughts throughout. So before, we've talked about the owner does everything. Afterwards, administrative people handle tasks, and we've talked about quite a few of those examples. Sales will drive revenue. Marketing will build a pipeline. That pipeline then will turn into lead generation, which then is the bullet point number 2, will give you sales, revenue, and growth beyond that. You will be spending your time in a different way, hopefully in a better way. You may have been making widgets for a long time and you get tired of that. You want somebody else to do it. Somebody else can do that. You then start to think in a bigger picture way and think like a CEO, think like an owner. So you might have time to think about technology, new customers, new areas, new services, working with building access to capital, building financing solutions. You're going to be thinking about things you haven't thought about before. And that's that level of incompetency. Again, I'm not using that word to mean you're incompetent, but if you've never done some of those things at the beginning, you are incompetent, but you're growing and you're learning. All of this will obviously lead to increased revenue. So how do we do this? Bringing this sort of to a close and thinking about segueing this, what are we thinking about here? Your next steps are to identify your biggest time drain. And I've already said some of that. Said some of this. In order to prioritize, what are your biggest time drains? Where are you most bored? Where are you spending all of your time doing things that you've done a million times and you don't want to do? You could do those things in your sleep. Those are good leading indicators that maybe it's time to give some of those things away. Have you missed sales opportunities? Do you have good processes documented? Do you have a good onboarding process in place? And then just start to plan. Think about what that might look like. And then making sure that as you are bringing this first person in, do you have a good arrangement for them? Do you have good expectations identified? Do you have a good job description? Do you have a good 1-week onboarding plan? A 30-day onboarding plan, a 90-day onboarding time? You literally need to map out how they're going to spend time and how you're going to spend time helping them. You become a mentor and a teacher. So have a good plan for that first hire. I've said it before, on our website, there is actually, when you go to our website, a window will pop up and you'll have an opportunity to sign up for our white paper series. We have some blogs, some white papers, and I think they're pretty great. Of course, I understand you're not necessarily going to read every word on every document, but there are some wonderful nuggets in there that will support some of these things. Maybe it will be used as a work plan. Maybe you can use those to refresh your thoughts about these as you navigate through these. I just encourage people to go to those white papers. We do have a white paper on this very subject. The first 3 roles every growing small business should add. It supports the things that we're talking about here today, and I just encourage you to check that out. So in closing, growth requires letting go. I think that I have impressed that upon this session today. It is the only way you're going to grow. That is a truth. Master entrepreneurs professional entrepreneurs, the people that have done this over and over, this is what they do. If you spend any time on social media, you will stumble upon business coaches. You'll stumble upon people that have said, hey, join my course. I have built businesses to X dollar amounts and sold them, and I've done that 15 times. Now I'm here to teach you. I'm telling you, as Carl Baker, what they're teaching you is some portion of this concept: building systems, building a staffing plan, leveraging, teaching you how to not do everything. That is the essence of what those courses are. Take those courses if you want to, but these are the fundamentals of building a business, and that's essentially what they're teaching. Why? Because it's a truth. They're teaching truth. This is the truth. This is the way. And so I hope that makes a lot of sense. And I encourage you to ask questions, reach out to us. My email is on this slide, carl@bakercfoadvisory.com. That is also our website, bakercfoadvisory.com. And we're going to continue our series next month, June 18th. We will put our next video out where we're going to continue talking about business growth and how to scale a business. And in that session, we're going to talk about how to build a culture when there are only 2 to 3 of you, when you have a small growing team, how to start to establish values, how to start establishing a culture and putting parameters around the way. And it's very important. You can either do it intentionally, overtly, or you can let it happen, but it will happen, and you might as well plan for it. So we're going to talk about that, and I'll look forward to that. Again, my name is Carl Baker. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Reach out with questions. I promise we'll get back with you if you have any questions or comments. We enjoy doing these sessions, and we can't thank you enough, and we'll see you next time. God bless.
Thanks for listening to CFO Squared, hosted by Carl Baker with Baker CFO Advisory. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from the conversation. We'll see you in the next episode.